Hello, and this is our top 8. Well, we had a clean cut at 22 points, so there was nobody getting the old ninth place cry, really, in that respect. Top of the Swiss was Michael Maxwell, 25 points. He was playing Esper. In fact, we have a pretty open top 8, you could say here. Mats Volberg, 24 points, playing Red Deck, with a bit of splash for black there.
Yeah, I think he's playing Falconwrath Aristocrat, and he's got Duress in the board, but aside from that, it's pretty much just straight up red.
And then on 23 points, in fact, so first, second, and third on 25, 24, and 23 respectively, was Patel with Jund. And then we had 5 guys all on 22 points. Andrew Devine with Naya, Rob Wagner with Jund, who we've just been having a chat with. Then we have Roberto Pancrazi playing green-white beats, by the look of things.
Yeah, he's pretty much on sort of fencing ace, voice of resurgence, that sort of thing. Just trying to beat down as fast as possible. He's probably the only deck that can rival the red deck in terms of speed in this top 8.
In 7th position, Yulin Wong, playing a Jundi aristocraty type deck.
It's a strange build, the one that Yulin's got, because I believe he's playing Burning Tree Emissary, but no actual 2-drops. So it might be sort of Burning Tree into kill your guy on turn 2 is pretty much what he can do.
Trying to take the sort of the tempo advantage back off.
Yeah, he might feel that it's good in the aggro matchups to be able to do that, but it does seem a little bit strange to be doing that.
And just scraping into 8th spot with I think we said a dodgy ID.
Yeah.
Was Ross Silcock playing some blue-white-red control. Really, he's only got a couple of kill cards in the deck.
He's got 2 Etherlings, which are incredibly powerful from the latest set, Dragon's Maze. And he's also got 3 Snapcasters, but because he's got such a high number of War Leaders helixes in the deck, it isn't inconceivable for him just to simply point burn at his opponent's face until his opponent dies. If you look back to our modern coverage that we did at the last PTQ that was held in Manchester, Matt Light, in fact, won using very similar tactics in a couple of games where he just simply burnt his opponent out.
Now, the reason I said it was particularly dodgy ID for Ross Silcock in 8th place there was that he was basically relying on results elsewhere going for him. For example, Michael Maxwell particularly wanted to finish top of the Swiss. So he got paired with somebody on 21 points.
Yeah, him and Michael Burke ended up paired together, and
Mike Burke finishing in 10th spot because Michael Maxwell, as we saw on the video, decided to play his last round.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really blame Michael Maxwell for that because of the way that Swiss pairings in the top 8 are set up now, where the winner of the Swiss gets to go first in every matchup. The worst that could have happened to Michael Maxwell there was that he finished 8th.
Well, he would have most likely finished 3rd. He had a slightly worse opponent match win percentage than Kiyori Patel. But Michael would have finished on 23 points, so he still would have got his quarter-final, but he may have been going second in a semi-final.
Yeah, so it's one of those cases where there's nothing really that bad that can happen to you, and if you win, it's really good.
Does Esper want to go first more than other decks do?
Against red decks and other aggressive decks, absolutely. Even against Jund decks, it's like Jund deck with Farseek on the play is a lot more dangerous than Jund deck with Farseek on the draw.
Now, there were a couple of other people who were around the sort of the 19-point range who ended up losing their last round. Jack Mitchell-Burns. If he'd won his last round, he would have knocked Ross out of top 8. So, pretty lucky ID in the end for Ross that things went for.
In the end, things have gone. In the end, things have gone well for Ross, but he did explain his reasons in the interview for why he ID'd with Rob Wagner in the last round. Rob, as you can see, has made it in quite comfortably on his tiebreakers.
So anyway, we are now going to cover a quarter-final match, and Boomer's going to tell us who it is.
We're going to be covering Ross Silcock against Michael Maxwell. Unfortunately, we've trolled all of you because it's an Esper control versus blue-white-red control matchup. But for those of you who are connoisseurs of the control matchup, you should, you should enjoy this one. Ross believes he's favoured in these sorts of matches due to the fact that he has Cavern of Souls Aetherling, so he can absolutely guarantee to stick an Aetherling. The only problem that I would have is that Ross does have quite a few dead cards in this matchup. He has cards like Pillar of Flame, which does pretty much precisely nothing. He has, Searing Spear's not great, but I suppose it's okay for going to the head of your opponent. Turn and Burn again doesn't do a huge amount either. So he does have those dead cards in this matchup, whereas Michael Maxwell's deck more than likely won't have that many dead cards game 1. Game 2, I believe that Ross gets another Aetherling and another Cavern, so he really goes heavily onto the Aetherling plan, and he really believes that he's ahead in this matchup, certainly post-board.
Well, let's crack on anyway with game 1. So Michael Maxwell will be going first in all of his matchups. However, this might be his last matchup if he loses to Ross here.
Yeah, you'll notice that Ross kept in the dark there. That's because he's on 4 cards. Unfortunately, the curse of the camera has struck again, and he has mulliganed. Although the fact is that Michael's probably not going to put the most pressure on him that he could be under, so he might be able to recover.
As you can see that, Michael's already started cycling through his deck.
Yep. Ross did have an interesting decision on 5 cards. His hand was a blue-white land, Think Twice, Azorius Charm, and 2 Pillar of Flames. So, spoken to Ross about it, he said that he felt that the Pillar of Flames were just blank, so therefore he'd be better off with a random 4.
So this is what Michael's trying to do now, is just end this one quick. Bust out the Spirits with a couple of Lingering Soul tokens.
Lingering Souls is going to be one of his better cards in this matchup for sure.
Yeah, it's really hard for control decks to deal with.
Yeah, you often using multiple cards to deal with half a card. Which is going to be even worse given the fact that Ross is so low on cards from his mulligans. And Michael just continuing to draw cards, trying to improve his hand.
So we now got to think twice for Michael. Again, in these control matchups, you're just looking to play a land every single turn here.
Yeah. Ross has managed to hit his first 4 land drops, so he's not done too badly off a multi-4 there. But
it's like slashing back. Couple more tokens here.
Not too sure how much I like that. He wants to increase the clock for sure, but now 1 Supreme Verdict cleans up his Lingering Souls.
But he's fine with that. It's a 1-for-1.
Essentially, yeah. And there we go. We get the 1-for-1.
You can just think twice at the end of the turn now.
Yep.
And you can see the difference already. Ross will have, say, 2 to 3 cards in his hand at this point, but we've still got just a complete grip from Michael.
Yep, he will more than likely just be looking to try and stick something, maybe a Sorin or a Planeswalker of some description. Lingering Souls is also fine. Doesn't go for the immediate flashback. Could be not too sure what that land that's hiding under his planes is, but might be a Hallowed Fountain. If it was, he can sit on Dissipate or Syncopate or a card like that. And he's just going to keep knocking Ross down on life. Vault to the Archangel there from Michael.
Talk briefly about what that card does in the matchup.
In this matchup, it's probably not as relevant as in other ones, although lifelink against a burn deck or a deck with a lot of burn in it is always going to be a decent proposition. Especially with a card like Aetherling. We saw in the final round of the Swiss how Michael just vaulted the Archangel, then Aetherling, and Jund was, and Michael with his Jund deck was like, yeah, we're done. The Baneslayer Angel always used to be pretty much doomed for any deck it was against, and
so it turns out anyway, if you're in this kind of control matchup and You draw 2 of the best card in your deck. Things look pretty well for you. Lingon's Hole, such a beating.
Yeah, here's the that was the Planeswalker part of his deck with Tamio. You notice Michael's also got a Nephalia Drown Yard out now, so that that pretty much puts Ross on a clock now. Even with this Supreme Verdict, if it resolves. Yep. I mean, obviously the Supreme Verdict's going to resolve. It's whether the Snapcaster Mage resolves. So now if Michael's not got an aggressive follow-up, he'll more than likely just resort to the mill plan against Ross. And Ross's only option at that point really is to go for the burn you out as fast as possible plan.
Michael throws out Jace there and does the mini gifts.
Mini fact or fiction. Yeah. There's a card I wouldn't mind seeing a reprint. There goes a load of comments on the on the videos.
Ross will probably burn out Jace. I imagine he's probably got some kind of burn spell.
He's got a Searing Spear and a Turn Burn in hand, so I can't imagine that Jace living very long. Just having a think. Any Searing Spears, Jace? Or more accurately, Searing Spears Michael redirecting the damage to Jace. It looks like Michael wants to keep his Jace around.
Well, as we know in these kind of matchups, the longer your Planeswalker sticks around, the more you sort of lock in the victory.
Yep. Now Ross has to decide if he wants to use that last burn spell in his hand on the Jace. And it looks like he does, yep.
Now he's pretty much all out of gas.
He's got I think he's got to think twice. Yeah. So again, Michael's not under any real pressure here. Ross has got 1 card in hand. Unless that card's Sphinx's Revelation, then there's not really a huge amount of ways that Ross can get back into this. And the mill plan begins. In fact, there goes a Sphinx's Revelation.
Flashes back the think twice from Ross here.
He's able to, because Michael's not putting him under that much pressure yet, he is able to recover a little bit, but we just got to remember he's 3 cards down in this at this point, and that just means he's going to lose pretty much any severe fight that goes on.
Michael's doing a good job of playing his land every turn.
His first Sphinx's Revelation is going to be quite impressive. Snapcaster Mage from Ross. And yeah, he's on the burn you out plan now.
Ross realises he doesn't really have that many turns to wait around.
Yeah, he also has another War Leader's Helix in hand, so you know the burn you out and nibble you with Snapcaster plan is definitely on at this point. Of course, what Ross is hoping is that Michael starts milling Think Twices off his library.
And we're seeing the first probably many creature removal spells in Michael's hand that he's been holding on to.
Again, we did discuss dead cards in this matchup, and dead weight's certainly one that isn't going to be that impressive in this match. I believe that Michael runs 2 or 3, and that along with Warp Physique are going to be his sort of dead cards in this match, but at least Ross's burn can always go to Michael's head. Even if it is Pillar of Flame or something like that, damage is damage. Ross just removing his exile pile from under his graveyard there. It's very important to keep those 2 things separate. Another land from Ross. Drown Yard's definitely going to work for Michael here. I'd say that Ross has probably only got 7 or 8 more turns to try and muster up some sort of defence here. And Ross loses an Etherling to the Drown Yard as well there.
So, one Etherling left in the deck somewhere.
Another think twice from Ross. And of course, the lower his library gets, the worse Sphinx's Revelation gets. So Ross has 6 points of burn in his hand at the moment with War Leader's Helix and Pillar of Flame.
Michael will just go ahead and take the 2 here.
That's always got to get you a little bit worried though when we start doing that. So Pillar you. Okay, so I suppose, I guess I know what your plan is there.
Michael's plan will be to counter any creatures at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even... I mean, Ross would obviously go for an Etherling if he had it in his hand, but... Helix you. And the one thing about modern control decks, or should rephrase that, modern standard control decks, is that they don't actually play that many counterspells. You know, we're in the Cavern of Souls era at the moment, so
Helix is one that will draw a counterspell out of most people because it's one of the bigger burn spells in Ross's deck.
Yeah, Michael will know very well what Ross's plan is at this point. He's just giving it a little bit of thought.
You don't mind so much if you use a Dissipate on something like that because he can't snap it back anyway.
And so Michael's going to try and draw 5 cards.
Perfectly fine option instead of using a counter spell. Tell you what, I'll counter your spell and draw 5 cards.
Yeah, sounds alright, doesn't it? I'd play that. Ross is going to try and syncopate to tap Michael out. Michael's going to fire back with a syncopate of his own there, so he's going to draw 5 cards and then with War Leader's Helix still on the stack.
Although he's probably happy taking that to the face at this point. 15's a comfortable life total.
Yep, there we go, he just takes it. Ross goes to 18, Michael to 11. So Ross is now even, Ross is now even further away from where he needs to be in this matchup. I think he just drew another War Leader's Helix though, so he can... that plus a Snapcaster Mage puts Michael in a little bit of trouble if he's not got another answer. The one disadvantage that these Sphinx's Revelation decks tend to have is that they play so many land that their Sphinx's Revelations tend not to draw as much gas as you might think. They still draw gas obviously, but they're more likely to draw lands and spells that don't actually do anything. And especially if you were talking about especially if you're talking about a deck like Bant, which runs Farseek as well, there are just so many cards that can draw which don't actually matter.
Ross is getting a bit thin on the old library there.
Yeah, another War Leader's Helix pointed at Michael. And now he's counting up his library, so...
looks like being about 8 cards there.
Something like that. He has a Sphinx's Revelation in hand, so one tactic that he might go for is Sphinx's Revelation for his library minus 4 cards, and just hope that he finds 7 points of burn or a Snapcaster Mage in that. Because then obviously Michael mills in for 3, he draws his last card for a turn and hopes to have lethal burn. It looks like that's what Ross is doing. He Sphinx's Revelation in for 3. Or is it 4? 3. And even though Ross has got 12 mana on the table, that's still not infinite because Snapcaster War Leader's Helix does cost 6 mana. So Michael can still fight over whatever he wants to do at this point. And Ross has a Searing Spear in his hand. Not too sure if he has the Snapcaster Mage though. He's got the Aetherling, that's one thing he does have.
Burn spell at end of turn puts Michael to 4.
So now it all depends what's on top of Ross's library. Three cards left. And nope, he's not going to make it.
So nothing of relevance from Ross on that very last draw, and Michael will mill out Ross the next turn, so Ross scoops him up, and it's 1-0 to Michael.